Mahindananda Aluthgamage once held a significant position in Sri Lanka. He served as the country's Minister of Sports. This role placed him in charge of important decisions related to sports development and funding. However, his time in office has now come under intense scrutiny. Recent events have dramatically changed his public image and personal freedom. He faced serious accusations regarding his conduct while he was a minister. These accusations led to a lengthy legal process. The outcome of this process has sent ripples through the political landscape of Sri Lanka, highlighting issues of governance and accountability for those in powerful positions. His actions during his tenure were closely examined by the authorities. The core of the case against Mr. Aluthgamage involved the misuse of state funds. Specifically, he was accused of using government money improperly during the lead-up to the 2015 presidential election. The prosecution stated that these funds were used to purchase a large number of carom boards and checkers boards. The plan was to distribute these items to sports clubs through Sathosa, a state-owned enterprise. It was argued that this distribution was not for genuine sports promotion. Instead, the aim was to improperly influence voters and gain support for the then-incumbent President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who was seeking re-election. This alleged scheme was designed to sway public opinion. On May 29, 2025, the Colombo High Court delivered its verdict. Mr. Aluthgamage was found guilty of the charges brought against him. The court concluded that he had indeed misused his authority and state resources. As a consequence of this conviction, he was handed a severe sentence, 20 years of rigorous imprisonment. This type of imprisonment often involves hard labor and is considered a very serious penalty. He was not the only one convicted in this case. Nalin Fernando, who was the former chairman of Sathosa and also a former trade minister, was also found guilty and received an even longer sentence of 25 years of rigorous imprisonment for his role in the affair. The financial implications of this misuse of funds were substantial. The court determined that the actions of Mr. Aluthgamage and Mr. Fernando resulted in a significant loss to the government. This loss was estimated to be over 53 million Sri Lankan rupees, which is a considerable sum of public money. In addition to the lengthy prison sentences, both individuals were also ordered to pay fines. Each of them was fined an amount equivalent to $2,000. This case, prosecuted by the Commission to Investigate Allegations of Bribery or Corruption, CIA-BOC, underscores the serious consequences of corruption, especially when it involves the diversion of funds meant for public benefit or fair electoral processes. The concept of bail is a crucial part of many legal systems. Typically, bail is something that a person accused of a crime can apply for while their case is still ongoing. This means that if bail is granted, the accused person can be released from custody until their trial is completed. The primary purpose of bail in this pre-conviction stage is to ensure that the accused person will show up for their court dates. It is not a declaration of innocence or guilt. It is a temporary measure that allows individuals to remain free while the legal process unfolds. The presumption of innocence is a key factor when courts consider pretrial bail applications. However, the situation changes dramatically once a person is convicted and sentenced by a court of law. After a conviction, especially for serious offences that result in a lengthy prison term like rigorous imprisonment, obtaining bail becomes much more difficult. Mr. Aluthgamage is now in this very situation. He is no longer simply an accused person. He has been found guilty by a high court. This shift in legal status has a profound impact on his ability to be released from prison. The law views individuals who have been convicted through a different lens than those who are merely awaiting trial. The focus shifts from ensuring appearance at trial to upholding the court's judgment. Mr. Aluthgamage's current legal status is that of a convicted individual serving a sentence. The presumption of innocence, which is a cornerstone of pre-trial bail considerations, no longer applies to him in the same way. The court has examined the evidence and arguments and has made a determination of guilt. This conviction means that the state now has a legal basis to keep him incarcerated. While he still has the right to appeal his conviction, he is, for now, a prisoner. This reality fundamentally alters the criteria and the likelihood of him being granted any form of release from custody. His legal team faces a much tougher challenge now. The legal system in Sri Lanka, like in many other countries, treats post-conviction bail applications with great caution. When bail is considered after a conviction, it is often referred to as bail pending appeal. The focus of the court shifts significantly. Instead of primarily worrying about whether the person will attend future court dates for a trial, the court now considers the validity of the conviction itself and the justice of keeping someone imprisoned if there's a strong chance the conviction could be overturned. However, the starting point is that the conviction is valid and strong reasons are needed to release the person. The burden of proof essentially shifts to the convicted person to show why they should be released. Despite the conviction and the heavy sentence, Mr. Aluthgamage still has avenues to challenge the High Court's decision. The legal system provides a pathway for appeals, allowing for a review of the trial and the judgment. This is a fundamental right for anyone convicted of a crime. The appeal process is designed to correct any potential errors that may have occurred during the trial, whether they relate to the interpretation of law or the assessment of evidence. Mr. Aluthgamage is widely expected to utilize this process to try and overturn his conviction or reduce his sentence. This will involve his lawyers preparing detailed legal arguments for a higher court to consider. The first step in this appeal journey for Mr. Aluthgamage will be to take his case to the Court of Appeal in Sri Lanka. This court is the next level up from the High Court that convicted him. His legal team will need to file a formal appeal outlining the specific grounds on which they believe the High Court's judgment was flawed. These grounds could include arguments that the trial judge made errors in legal rulings, that evidence was improperly admitted or excluded, or that the evidence presented was not sufficient to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The Court of Appeal will then carefully review the record of the High Court trial and the arguments presented by both the defense and the prosecution. If the Court of Appeal were to uphold the High Court's conviction and sentence, Mr. Aluthgamage would still have one more potential avenue for appeal. This would be to take his case to the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka. The Supreme Court is the highest judicial body in the country, and its decisions are final. Appealing to the Supreme Court usually involves arguing that the case involves a significant point of law or that a serious miscarriage of justice has occurred. Gaining leave to appeal to the Supreme Court can be challenging in itself, as the court typically only hears cases of major legal importance or where there are compelling reasons to believe a lower court erred significantly. The entire appeal process, from the Court of Appeal to potentially the Supreme Court, can be a very lengthy and complex undertaking. It is not a quick procedure. It involves the meticulous preparation of legal documents, submission of written arguments, and eventually oral arguments before the judges of the appellate courts. During this extended period, unless bail pending appeal is granted, Mr. Aluthgamage would remain in prison serving his sentence. The wheels of justice at the appellate level turn methodically, and it can take many months or even years for a final decision to be reached. This prolonged uncertainty is a significant aspect of the post-conviction phase. Securing bail after a conviction, known as bail pending appeal, is not a straightforward matter. It is certainly not an automatic right. Unlike pre-trial bail, where the focus is on ensuring appearance in court, bail pending appeal is granted much more sparingly. The courts operate on the principle that a conviction by a competent court is valid unless overturned. Therefore, releasing a convicted person while their appeal is heard is considered an exception rather than the rule. Mr. Aluthgamage's legal team will need to present compelling and exceptional reasons to persuade an appellate court to grant him bail at this stage. The bar for this is set very high. Several critical factors are taken into account by Sri Lankan courts when deciding whether to grant bail pending appeal. One of the most important considerations is the perceived likelihood of the appeal being successful. If the court believes there are strong arguable grounds that suggest the conviction might be overturned, this can weigh in favor of granting bail. Conversely, if the appeal seems weak, bail is unlikely. The severity of the sentence imposed is another key factor. A long sentence, like 20 years of rigorous imprisonment, makes bail less probable. The courts also assess the risk of the convicted person absconding, fleeing if released, and whether there is any risk of them interfering with witnesses or the course of justice, even at the appeal stage. The nature of the offence for which Mr. Aluthgamage was convicted, corruption involving the misuse of substantial public funds, will also play a significant role in any bail application. Courts tend to view corruption cases very seriously, especially when they involve a breach of public trust by elected officials and result in a large financial loss to the state. The fact that over 53 million rupees was lost to the government due to this scheme will undoubtedly be a major consideration. There is often a public interest component in such cases, with courts being cautious about releasing individuals convicted of serious financial crimes against the state while their appeals are pending. Considering all these elements, Mr. Aluthgamage faces an exceptionally challenging uphill battle to secure bail pending his appeal, particularly if his case reaches the Supreme Court. The gravity of his offence, the significant length of his sentence, 20 years of rigorous imprisonment, and the strong stance courts often take in corruption, matters all weigh heavily against him. While the final decision will rest on the specific legal arguments presented in his appeal and the discretion of the judges, the general legal precedent and the circumstances of his case suggest that obtaining release from prison during the appeal process will be a very difficult feat to achieve. He will need to demonstrate truly exceptional circumstances.